Who is the most underrated actor of all time?
It's Dolph Lundgren.
Correct. Why?
Well, because of his spiky hair, and his ice-cold demeanor, and his big muscles.
Absolutely.
I must break you. The guilty will be punished.
My name is Sergeant Andrew Scott.
Come on, guys, don't do this. If I don't get breakfast, I get real grumpy. I don't think you like me grumpy. And you go in pieces, asshole.
Let's kick some ass.
Hello and welcome back to I Must Break This Podcast, the fan podcast celebrating the cinematic career of action legend Dolph Lundgren. I'm your host, Sean, and on today's special interview episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with actor, writer, director, and producer Stephen Luke. But before we get to the conversation, I wanted to remind you all to please feel free to rate and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else you go to subscribe. We always appreciate the reviews, especially those 5-star reviews. Those always help. Also, please be sure to check out the Facebook page for the show, I Must Break This Podcast. Here you can stay up to date on the show, the career of Mr. Dolph Lundgren, and other news regarding action cinema in general. So if you're not already following the page, please feel free to like it, share it, and continue being a fan and helping spread the word. Lastly, if you'd like to get in contact with me with ideas, suggestions, or thoughts on the show in general, you can take a look at the official webpage for the show, which is imustbreakthispodcast.wordpress.com. Now, on to today's conversation. Recently, I had the pleasure of chatting with Stephen Luke. Stephen is a huge history buff, especially of the World War II period. In fact, he's been able to combine his love of history and cinema by establishing the company Man the Line, a small business in South Dakota that rents out original military equipment, props, costumes, and other materials for various reenactments and film productions. Basically, if you've seen a film set during World War II within the past 10 years, there's a good possibility that some of the props were provided by Man the Line. In 2015, after writing and producing a number of World War II short films, Stephen was able to see his first feature film project come to life thanks to the help of Dolph Lundgren. That project was War Pigs. In War Pigs, Dolph Lundgren and Luke Goss lead and train a ragtag group of misfits to go behind enemy lines to eliminate a deadly Nazi weapon and hopefully come out alive.
I'm putting together a group of hand-picked men for a very special mission, and I need you to lead them. I need you back in the fight.
Here are the folders on our men. The War Pigs.
War Pigs? Hitler's gonna build himself a new super weapon. The division wants us to go in and find it.
Who sent you to spy on us?
Let's deep into enemy territories.
I know it will be easy to get in or get out.
Never is, sir.
How was further?
A lot of men died following my orders.
Men died because of your orders, but more men did because of yours.
I'm gonna get in, go find it. I'm gonna go home.
In this conversation, Stephen and I discuss the genesis of War Pigs and how Lundgren was instrumental in getting the project off the ground. We also discuss the current state of independent action cinema and how Stephen's able to not only assemble World War II set films on a budget, but acquire known actors and attach their names to get financing. Stephen also gives intel on his two upcoming projects, both filmed within the past year and both reuniting him with Dolph Lundgren. Operation Seawolf and Come Out Fighting. Both these projects were written and directed by Steven, and they should be released here in the next year. Clearly, Steven is passionate about both film and World War II, and it's truly amazing to see him doing what he loves on a daily basis. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Steven Luke on I Must Break This Podcast.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. I mean, obviously, I want to be as respectful of your time. I know that you're very, very busy because, I mean, just looking at your resume, you're a real jack of all trades in a sense. I mean, you're an actor, writer, director, producer. You also run and operate a company that rents out military equipment for film productions and reenactments. Is that right?
That is correct. I have a company called MaxLine.com. I do rent out historical reproductions, uniforms for the films, for TV productions. Like, for example, I had to send some stuff off to a production called Rebel Moon. I'm blanking on whose movie that is. But, sometimes there's big stuff, sometimes there's little stuff. It's something I started in college. Wanting, to kind of do, I always tell people it started off as being, something where I started doing, it was just for fun, and then it was like, oh, this pays beer money, and then it was paying, it paid rent, and then it was paying tuition, and then all of a sudden I was like, I think I can make this a full-time job, kind of by myself, and it was something that, kind of tied hand in hand with my love of films and filmmaking, and I kind of had it, it kind of helped support me during my, quest to become, just making movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an awesome segue because I was really curious about that. So if I understand correctly, I mean, and it's very evident from all of your films, but you're a huge history buff. You have a degree in history, right?
Correct, yeah, I do.
So, I mean, this is what I think is just fascinating, is that you're a history buff, you're also a film nut, and you were very fortunate and you were able to combine these two passions of yours. So, was it and I'm just purely speculating, I don't know, but was it the Man the Line company that you forming that kind of opened the doors to you stepping into the film business, or how did that work?
Well, that's a good question. I'm getting old enough now where I have to actually think about that. I did they always say when you want to get into, or at least they used to say, when you want to get into making your, first feature, or you want to do film stuff, your own stuff, they always say, well, you want to try to grab as much assets as you have, that you can to put in front of your screen. So you always want to, try to, well, what do you have access to? What do you know? Are you doing let's just say you're doing an action movie and maybe you work down at the docks and, okay, I know a bunch of buddies down there and I know the foreman and all this stuff, and maybe we can go shoot location, just for production value. What do you have access to that would look cool on camera? And one of the things that, I kind of decided on, I had a passion for World War II. I kind of started this business. I had collected, not a significant amount of things over the years, but I had a number of things. I had a bunch of buddies that do reenactments. I also, do reenactments. I do them less than I used to, but that was something that was a lot of fun when you're in college, to get to go do. And I was just like, hey, this would be a fun, hey, that seems to be the thing. And I enjoy, obviously, a history major, so I enjoyed, World War II. I kind of specialize in those types of movies right now, and that was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, why don't I just do that? I'll just, not a lot of people have access to maybe some of that stuff, and it always looks good on camera. And so I was like, I'll just, we did something in college. We shot a little 30-minute short film that, really obviously looking back on today, I go, oh my goodness, it needs a lot of work. But at the time, it was amazing. It was so awe-inspiring. So, really wanted to make me pursue filmmaking. I had so much fun. And so I just kind of kept, from that experience and from feedback from people, I just kind of kept plugging away at it and getting bigger and better and learning from mistakes and growing, hopefully. And, and so I hope that, my film projects have, reflected that. But yeah, that kind of was so that was a long story to answer your question, but the short answer would be they kind of went hand in hand. It's just kind of, I kind of brought both together, and they've been growing together.
So approximately how many various projects and productions would you guys say that Man the Line surfaces each month, including your own? Because that's something else I don't want to lay on. But yeah, you're able to use the equipment and the props and the various vehicles and everything for your own productions, but then I imagine other productions are also coming to you guys saying, hey, we're making a World War I set piece that's going to take about 3 weeks to film or whatever. Can we borrow your equipment and rent it out from you? How many productions are you guys helping out each month?
Well, it's with film production, it always seems like it comes in, it like all shows up at once, and then we'll be dead for maybe months or even a year. It's just that always just seems to be the way that it kind of is. And films reflect that. It's like all of a sudden the hot thing is to make a World War II movie, and everyone's making one at the same time. But yeah, I definitely feel like we usually help in some capacity between 6 or 8. Like kind of, I would call them independent feature films. Those can range from budgets from no budget to, maybe, $10 million plus. We usually, and then, I would say like any major studio film that's ever come out in the last, definitely the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've had at least some of my stuff featured in it. Where, that could be, several sets of uniforms or boots. Like for Fury, like the movie Fury, I know they had me overnight a bunch of, I had these like original map cases that they wanted to have for Brad Pitt because he wasn't happy with whatever he had. So I had these like mint original from World War II ones, and they had me FedEx overnight it to the set. And so I know I supplied a couple other pieces, but that's kind of always a fun story. I don't know if that ever got used in any of the shooting. I don't know, I don't ever know what happened to them, but I definitely know they definitely paid to have them overnighted, which was not cheap to the UK. So yeah, it just kind of, it always depends the work. Kind of some of the stuff that I'm always proud of is I help supply or at least find pieces for a lot of like theater productions across the country. That's always kind of fun to do because, as much as I love, I do love the history, and so it's kind of fun to help, maybe a local theater. They don't necessarily have, the budget, obviously, like that maybe a film set would have, but just like helping them like piece together something that is reasonable within their budget that they can present their audience in order to, have them have an enjoyable experience watching the movie. They don't necessarily have to have picture, like exact replica pieces on their performers, and I can kind of usually help them be like, okay, you can go to Walmart and get, these type of boots and these type of pants and this shirt and this tie, and that's pretty close to what I make, and it will look really good in theater. So that's always kind of fun to be able to do to help them.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest. I mean, I really didn't, you really didn't pop up on my radar until I saw the film War Pigs in 2015, and that was, thanks to Mr. Dolph Lundgren, obviously. And it appears that was one of your first gigs working on a real feature-length movie. And on that one, it's interesting, you served as the writer and the producer on the film. You also pop up as one of the soldiers in the film, named Preacher. I was curious how that entire project came about.
Sure. Okay, let me rewind my brain back to War Pigs. So War Pigs kind of stems from a short film that I had called Wonderland or Wunderland. It was like a 10-minute short film that I had shot in college. I kind of did it a little bit more artistic, a little bit more cinematic, kind of trying to help, pitch a feature film that I wanted to make based out of that script. I did end up shooting or creating something similar to that later on, but at the time, I was a big-eyed, youth that was going to Hollywood to pitch their project to, big Hollywood producers. So I ended up moving to Los Angeles, not right out of college, but pretty close, within a year. And I had this project in my hands. I'd done, maybe a couple of feature films, in the sci-fi genre before, but this was going to be my project. Ultimately, I would kind of pitch that around to different companies, and everyone was super nice and great, but I didn't have any takers, except for one company called VMI, Vantage Media. Andre Relis, who has been my producing partner on several projects, he just fell in love with the script and the idea. He's a big World War II fan, and he definitely saw the potential that I was, definitely saw the potential there, and he picked that up and he ran with it, and he helped me, put that all together, cast it, with Dolph and Luke Goss, and we had Mickey Rourke, and he kind of helped put that together with me to create, and so that's kind of how I wrote the film. I acted in it. I always say, when I'm acting, acting to me is part of the movie business. I mean, I love all the aspects of filmmaking. The acting part for me is always the art side of things. I feel like that's always where I get to create something. So that's, so getting to be able to do that, to play a character in different films. I don't do it all the time. And I'm sometimes very selective if I come out and play, but that's fun for me. That's the art side of it. So, all the other stuff, like the producing, directing, writing, that always seems like a lot of work and a lot of stress. But when you get to act in something, that's always, it's just kind of, it's art and it's fun. But yeah, so that's kind of how that all got brought together. And to be honest with you, I think, if I remember right, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I think Dolph was the first main actor that said yes, he would do it. And he basically was the catalyst to, kind of have the project go forward. I would imagine, without him having agreed to play his character, be in the movie, I don't know if it would have ever gotten made. So I will always be grateful and humbled that he was willing to take a chance on the movie, the script, my production. And I thought his character was a lot of fun to write, and I remember Dolph, enjoying playing that character quite a bit. And I think it, really works on camera.
I mean, that was going to be my next question, but yeah, I mean, the film has a really stacked cast. I mean, it has Dolph Lundgren, obviously, but Luke Goss, Mickey Rourke, Chuck Liddell. And so, I mean, like I said, that lends perfectly to my next question. I was just curious. Okay, so Dolph Lundgren, I mean, that's what's amazing. The guy has been in the movie business for well over 35 years, and all of these years later, I mean, is it fair to say that his name still carries enough cachet to bring about financing and buzz to get a movie made?
Oh, yeah. Yes, most definitely. It still has, obviously Dolph has played several, memorable characters over his career. And, domestically, I would say that's obvious. And what might not be so obvious to some people is internationally, he's very, very popular as well. I mean, he has a certain amount of gravitas, on camera, and rightfully so. I mean, he's part of some of the best action movies that were ever made, especially, in the 80s, early 90s. And, and even, not to put down anything else that he's ever made. I mean, he continues. I mean, Aquaman 2, I know is coming out. I think is it coming out this summer, this fall? I mean, and, I know it could be later, but, he just got done shooting that, I think, last year. The Expendable series. I mean, he's just, he he demands quite a premium of respect in terms of like if you have him in your film.
Well, I mean, and yeah, you've been fortunate to cast and work with some real name talent in your films. I mean, Dolph, obviously, like we said, but Mickey Rourke, Tom Berenger, Michael Jai White, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Yet, here's what's really fascinating to me about these productions and these stars is that it seems like, and if I'm wrong with any of this, please correct me. But it seems like with many of these independent productions, is that these stars are that they seem like more or less commodities that the production can really only afford for a few days. So the production then has to, they're only there for a few days. So I'm just curious how the production works around this, and considering, okay, yes, these are names that the films are being sold on, yet their screen time is going to be fairly limited. So when you're putting together a movie, how do you guys kind of keep that in mind and work around that?
Well, I think one of the things, and so I can probably only speak to maybe how I, go about that process, how I create my film to accommodate, a named actor, definitely with, that has that driving force for your film. But you might be limited in the amount of days that you have him. And I think for me, like, well, it always starts with script and story. And then definitely for them, it's the character. They have to be wanting to be interested in playing in the world and also that character. But then, kind of like comes the fine tuning of, okay, if I'm only going to have an actor maybe for a day or two or three or four or five, how many pages or how much time of screen would be preferred that you're able to do while you have them to, obviously have them in your movie. And so I always try to keep the characters that I write for them, I don't want to say simple at all, because they're definitely not simple characters and they're definitely not simple scenes. But like what do I need to, like if I know I'm going to write, in my World War II movies, there's always kind of like the commanding officer roles, and which usually are are able to be played by maybe a little bit older actors, because obviously, they would be older commanders. I mean, that's why they're, majors or colonels or what have you and so forth. And so knowing that, writing a role like that, and knowing that, listen, these guys aren't necessarily going to have to be playing on like the front lines, in a firefight, and so how can I, incorporate them into my story organically, to help move the story forward, and then also as well as giving them, enough, character development that they feel comfortable with, playing, only being in the movie for maybe X amount of time, but knowing that their character is very important to the story and to driving things forward. And I think also it's very important, as you're creating these characters, to make sure that they're involved, from the beginning and to the middle to the end. I mean, you can't it's not fun to see Dolph, play a character only maybe for, just for maybe a couple scenes at the beginning and then never see him again. I mean, your audience wants to see them, play throughout the whole movie. And so just making sure that you can incorporate them into the story organically, smartly, enjoyably throughout the whole film, while also trying to limit the amount of shooting days or time that you might need to have that character available. One of the fun things that, I just got done doing, that's going to come out later this fall, it's called Operation Seawolf. It stars Dolph. And one of the amazing things is, I was given a kind of a task of several things that needed to happen, with Dolph obviously having to play the lead in this movie. He was the lead. And, but with the lead comes this, I knew I was going to have limited days with Dolph. It's like, okay, well, and I ended up having a script of 50 or 60 pages of him in the script, and that's quite a lot of pages when you're limited on time. So, trying to make sure to logistically plan that out with your shots, your locations, your timing of everything, your company moves, so you do that with your ADs, making sure that you can cover all your bases to get all the scenes shot. And I would also say, on top of that, you really want to make sure to let the actors be involved in the process and let them know, like, what, obviously they know what they're signed up for, but, no one wants to go work 23-hour days. And that's just not, you don't want to make Dolph work 23-hour days. Well, he wouldn't do that. But, no, I don't want to work a 23-hour day. No one wants to do that. So how can we make sure to comfortably, get everything done in reasonable amount of time? And I feel like always keeping the actors aware of what the game plan is super important. They're very smart. They've obviously been in lots of projects, and they know. I mean, they look at the page count and they know, okay, well, I'm here for X amount of days. How are you going to pull this off? And being able to kind of relay that to them before you even shoot, so they can feel comfortable with the game plan, and they know going into it, hey, there's a plan to get this done, and they like it, and maybe they're, and they're on board. And so that way, when you do have those moments where, like, hey, we need to be here a little bit longer, or, hey, can I have you, can we have this be, instead of maybe a 12-hour day, it's a 14-hour day? I mean, they're game for it because they've been, involved in the plan. They know what you're trying to do, and they're excited, to kind of help bring that together.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I've read quite a bit on how these independent productions work, especially when it comes to, like you said, casting these name stars. And one of the things that I have to give you major props for in War Pigs is how Dolph, for example, is in the film for a good majority of it. And, many of these productions, especially, I mean, let's just say, let's look at the ones with Bruce Willis, for example. Those ones will have Bruce on set for only a couple of days, and he's barely even in the film, yet it's his name and his face that's being used to sell the picture. And it seems like with War Pigs, you guys made a conscious effort to include Dolph in on all of the action sequences. Was this the idea? I mean, was this a conscious effort on your behalf where you guys were kind of like, okay, yes, we realize that our time with Dolph is limited, yet we're going to put him to work in the scenes of the film that truly count, and that is the action sequences. Was that kind of your thinking there?
Well, yeah, I would definitely say yes. One of the things that and I know that the type, when the names come in and they're barely in the movie and they disappear, and I definitely, now doing several of these, I can understand sometimes why that is, and maybe some logistical things didn't work out, it's just the way that it is. But, like, I always try to make a conscious effort to really have, my named actors be intricately involved in the story. And I really want, that's fun for me. I like to, have them play characters, and it's fun for them. I mean, they the actors, Dolph especially, but all named actors, they love playing. They love playing characters, and so sometimes, they will go that extra mile, and they'll for War Pigs. I know Dolph. We had him in a lot of stuff, and we even upped his I don't want to say screen time, but like his involvement in the film, right before we even started shooting, because we were having a lot of fun with his character, and we ended up on his last day. He ended up going to we started. I think we had a lot of pages to shoot just because we had some weather issue the day before. And Dolph knew that. We started early. I think we went to maybe 2 or 3 that night. And Dolph, we asked him, because we weren't going to get everything shot of him unless Dolph agreed to stay there to shoot, because he was done. And he was gracious, and he was totally down for it. And he said, I will be here until we get this done for you guys. And I'll never forget that. It meant so much. And he put in a very long day to make sure that we got all of this footage. And, I think part of that, obviously Dolph is, an amazing human being, genuine guy. But I also think, he was enjoying his time there, and he was enjoying his character, and wanted to make sure that he with us, gave everything that he could to bring that character to life and not have any of those issues where you see, oh, well, where did Bruce Willis go? Well, they just didn't get all the scenes shot with him because they ran out of time. That's not to put anything down with Bruce. I don't know any of the circumstances of any of that stuff or any of the actors. Just, that happens. That's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
And Dolph was very gracious and was there to, complete his work, and it really meant a lot. And I do think it showed up on screen.
Well, last question about War Pigs, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about it, is Mickey Rourke's character. Now,
sure.
in the film, he is wearing this cowboy hat and tinted aviator sunglasses that really don't necessarily appear very World War II accurate. And so I have a theory about this, and maybe I'm completely wrong. Hopefully you can put this to rest. But I'm wondering if I've heard and I've read that Mickey Rourke is one bear that you really don't want to poke. And so I'm wondering, did he show up on set and he's like, yes, I'm wearing this, and you guys are going to have to roll with it? Or what was whose decision was that?
Oh, yeah, that was definitely Mickey's. That was definitely this is what I'm wearing, and you're just going to have to roll with it type of situation. So, there's a lot of fun stories from that for me with Mickey. But, it definitely, yes, those are, saying this, he definitely, and I think Mickey's kind of known for that, where he kind of picks, like, I'm wearing this and I'm doing this, and that's just the way that it is, and if you want me out of my trailer, you're just going to have to accept it. So those are, some of the issues, or I shouldn't say issues, but those are some of the items that he needed to have, and, I was just very thankful that, he wore the rest of the costume that we had. So, you win some, you lose some. Obviously, when you produce something, you want things to be perfect, but, sometimes you just got to pick your battles, and, sometimes the art for the actors is important to them, and you just got to know when to roll with it.
Was that hard for you, though? This project in a lot of ways was your baby. You wrote the script, you're one of the producers, and you're also a huge history buff. So having, this mega star come on set, insisting on wearing an item that, let's be frank, does not suit the time period, was that difficult for you? Did you just kind of have to, bite your tongue and were like, all right, the movie is getting made, there are other battles to fight here?
Well, I knew, I'm definitely a businessman too, and I knew, like, not, fighting with him about it would not, we probably wouldn't get anything changed, and we'd only lose time, and not everything would get shot. So I knew that I knew there was no reason to even pick that battle. But also, like, sunglasses, cowboy hat, I'm a big fan of a movie called Kelly's Heroes, and they have a character, it's a World War II movie that's very popular and famous amongst World War II movie buffs, such as myself. And they have a few oddball characters in there that aren't necessarily period accurate. And, Mickey is kind of already a unique person. So I was just like, you know what, maybe in the future it'll just be racked up to, hey, there's Mickey Rourke and he's wearing his cowboy hat and sunglasses, even though it's not correct for the film. Just like yourself, people notice it, and they kind of, if they watch any Mickey Rourke movies, like, yeah, Mickey Rourke, that's what he does. So, it kind of lives in movie legend. It's just another piece of Mickey Rourke movie history. And, as well as, I want things to be historic, but, it to me, it's like, okay, well, there's Mickey Rourke being Mickey Rourke in my movie. So, I can add to I got Mickey Rourke. So it's all good. It's all good. And I kind of knew that, and I just accepted it, and it's just the way that it is. Pick your battles.
Yeah. Well, you have 2 more films with Dolph coming up. It seems like both of them were filmed this past year, Operation Seawolf and Come Out Fighting. Were these 2 separate ideas that you had where Dolph was once again available, or did you tailor these films and roles with him in mind? Because they both seem to get developed and filmed fairly quickly. Is that right?
Yes. So, Operation Seawolf, which is comes out this fall. It's based on it's set in World War II. Follows a U-boat captain as he kind of goes through the last days of World War II on a mission, kind of sent out at the last. Operation Seawolf is very true to life. That's what they called them right at the very end of the war, to kind of attack the United States coast and try to, breathe some life into their last bit of war effort. I wrote that with Dolph 100% in mind. It was completely created with Dolph as playing Captain Hans Kessler, and I just, I've gotten to know Dolph over the years. I've worked with him a couple times, and I kind of tried to write a character that I was like, I really would love to see Dolph play this and bring it to life. Dolph always looks great in uniforms for obvious reasons, and he has that strong jaw. And I was like, in War Pigs, I had him wear a German uniform, and I remember, because he's as a disguise, to get into the Germans. And I remember that was one of the biggest things everyone kept commenting on. They're just like, Dolph really looks good in a German uniform. It was that strong jaw and the blonde hair. He looks like a German captain. And I was like, you know what, he did look really good in that German uniform. So I was like, he would look good in a U-boat, in a Navy, Navy cut hat and sweater and stuff. So I was like, this is, and this kind of the stars aligned to make that work. I sent a first draft off to his team to review, and he loved it. I mean, he loved the character, he loved the role. And then what was fun is, and Dolph has obviously done several films. And he's amazing with character development, story. I mean, he directs projects, so he knows, how to think about, shot angles and all this stuff. And together we are able to kind of work on the character, work on the development of the story. Dolph is amazing with story. I mean, he knows when something's going to work and doesn't work in a script. I mean, he's done enough, especially action films, so he knows, like, oh, hey, we need this. We need something here. And so just to kind of be able to work with him hand in hand in creating this character, and then being able to, learn from his years of experience of being involved in Hollywood and films and movies. I mean, it was an incredible experience that I'll never forget, and I'm very fortunate to. And I'm super excited for people to see the movie when it comes out. It's one of the, I mean, for me, it is the best movie I've ever made, and it was for me, anyways. I mean, I'm always proud of all of my movies, but this movie was the first time I kind of, like, all the pieces, that I wanted to bring together got brought together, and I was very excited to kind of see that, and also my first time really getting to use VFX and CGI, and because obviously in the U-boat, you're out in the ocean fighting Navy ships and really bringing that world to life. It was the first time I've kind of been able to do that, and it's very exciting, and I'm just really excited for people to see it. I think they'll be very impressed.
So we have, here in the next year, we have 2 World War II set movies, both starring Dolph Lundgren. Operation Seawolf, it sounds like in that one he's a lead, whereas in Come Out Fighting, he's more as a supporting character, right?
Yes. So for Come Out Fighting, it's set during World War II. It follows the 761st Tanker Battalion, who was an all-African American unit in World War II, served under Patton's Third Army, and Dolph plays one of their commanding officers. And I know, it's one of those stories that I've always had in the back of my mind, kind of developing. I've gotten to work with some great African-American cast members in the past, and they just loved it, and they wanted to be involved in it, so we were able to develop it. I brought this, working off of Seawolf, I was, knowing Dolph, and he's just such a great guy. Hey, what are you working on? What do you got going on next? I wish you luck. And I said, oh, I'm working on Come Out Fighting this. He's like, well, let me know. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun. Send it over to me if there's a part that you think I could play, and I'll give it a read. And I wasn't necessarily expecting him to have to play anything or be involved. I knew it was more of a, I mean, it's obviously not a support. I mean, it is a supporting character, but it's a very intricate part. And obviously Dolph is the lead in lots of things, and so just to have him be supportive of the project, was great. I sent it over to him. He loved the character. He loved the opportunity. I know one of the things that he did for Come Out Fighting, he's just like, I got to get a big scar on my cheek. So it was fun to, do a fake, finding different looks for Dolph. So he's got a big battle scar across his cheek. He looks great. Yeah, no, it's just a lot of fun. He obviously does a fantastic job. That movie will probably be out towards the end of fall, so I'm just getting that finished up here probably, in the next month or two. So, I mean, he obviously does a fantastic job. The film, my lead, Hiram A. Murray, is fantastic. Second time I've worked with him, or third time I've worked with him. I mean, he'll also be in Seawolf as well. So, I mean, he does an incredible job, and obviously him. I have Kellen Lutz in it, Michael Jai, as well, and it's just, and Tyrese Gibson. I mean, it's a really blessing to kind of have, some of these bigger names, wanting to be involved in the project, and, seeing them, bringing them all together and seeing their work come to life, how they support each other, how they work well together, and just really were dived into their characters, just really incredible. And obviously, Dolph does a fantastic job. And I'm really excited for people. I mean, you'll get to see Dolph as a German and then an American. So, I mean, what could be better?
Well, it seems obviously like World War II is your favorite historical period, I guess, to make these movies about. Do you ever see yourself running out of stories to tell from this period of history, or is there still plenty of materials and stories to kind of mine from this era to keep you busy?
If someone was to tell me, like, Luke, all you're ever going to get to do is make World War II movies or projects, I definitely would tell them I won't be sad. I mean, I love the era. I love telling those stories. I mean, there's so many thousands of untold stories. It affected so many people and so many lives, spanning generations. And there's just so many stories to tell. And, it's just finding the story of the men and women, their personal journeys as they, had to survive whatever their circumstances were in that war. I just don't think that you can run out of. I mean, there's just so many people that it touched, and there's so many different circumstances that brought them to where they were. But it's like the perfect place to be. I mean, it truly is a war that was fought with good and evil, and it's just, the human contact with presenting those stories. I mean, I don't see it. Yeah, I don't see it ever not being able to find something to tell. There's always a new story to find.
Well, I mean, and you seem to be extremely busy. You have obviously quite a lot of exciting projects on the horizon. I mean, is it safe to say, it seems like, I mean, from the this is just the outsider's perspective, but it seems like the pandemic, was good for you and your business. I mean, it sounds like you were able to get a lot of work done, a lot of projects underway during this period. Is that fair to say?
I mean, this is a fun topic to try to tiptoe through. So most definitely yes. I was probably the busiest I've ever been during the pandemic. I would say mainly because I'd love to think that I have the talent, and I do. But also I had the I don't want to say I wasn't scared of the pandemic, but being a student of history, and I always say this, like, the bold can be rewarded, and the people that are willing to take risks and are willing to put themselves on the line, to go out there and make the work happen, even under conditions that are not normal and not ideal, and not that making these films was in any sort of the sense of unsafe or not not done properly. They were done very safe, very properly. They did require that extra, bit of due diligence in terms of keeping, you always want to keep your cast and crew safe, but there's just a whole new aspect of, safety that you had to keep in mind. And so being able to, and as a producer, one of the things that I love about producing is, each film has its own challenges. And this, COVID-19 provided, its own set of challenges. And while, I feel like I definitely have more gray hair from it, it definitely was a challenge that I was willing to accept because I knew there wouldn't be too many others that would be able to figure it out and be able to create during such trying times. And I felt that I could do a really great job for the projects that I had lined up while also keeping everyone safe and secure, knowing that we are making, something that's very important to, obviously, with films, but also history, but also during a time that, was challenging for everybody.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, like I said, I love War Pigs. War Pigs is a fantastic movie, but in looking at your upcoming slate, Operation Seawolf, I'm extremely psyched for, as well as Come Out Fighting. Like I said, this has been a pleasure, and I wish you nothing but the best. I can't wait to see these films, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of the year with all of your endeavors.
Well, thank you so much. I super appreciate being on the podcast and inviting me on. It's always fun to kind of get to talk about your art, and not too many times you get to do that. So thanks for listening to my stories. Hopefully they were adequate and not so long-winded.